Welcome everybody. Today's video is going to be a power steering pump on a '06 Ford Freestar 4.2 liter. This thing is a true basket case. I got to show you this stuff, guys. This is you don't see this every day. Okay, so the AC compressor's locked up, right? So they went to the absolute worst place in the world. You see that name on that belt? That belt's gonna break in about 2 days. Not my problem. So what they did was they wrapped it around the alternator. They got a shorter belt, wrapped it around the alternator, wrapped it around the water pump. Let's see, and then they wrapped it around the power steering pump. All that to bypass the air conditioning instead of just spending $300 on a compressor and putting a new compressor in it. This thing makes a god-awful squalling noise. I can start it up for you to hear it. So let me go ahead and start it. If you're listening with headphones, you might want to turn your volume down because this thing is pretty loud. So let me start it up and I'll just move the wheels slightly and you can hear the squalling. And that's with a quarter turn and the wheels aren't even turning yet. Ugliest sound I've ever heard. Fortunate for us though, power steering pump sits in the back. Unfortunate for us though is how we're going to figure out how to get this belt off so that I can get to the pump. And then we've got to get this line off, which means we're going to have to siphon out the power steering fluid so we can get the line off. I think our tensioner sits down there. I got our flashlight out here, so let me grab our flashlight. Let me see what we can see here, folks. I'll get you over here in the frame so you can see what I'm seeing. I think what we're looking for is down in here somewhere. Yep, there's the tensioner. Looks like it's the 15mm socket variety. Looks like they've had fun jerking it around too. So, let's see if we can get our belt off. And then of course I'll shine a light on the other elephant in the room, which is that line right there. If we can get that line loose, we'll be ahead of the game there too. But the first thing we need to do is get this belt off. Then after we get the belt off, we can work on getting to the pump. So let me go grab my belt tensioning tool and we'll see if we can get down in there and get that belt off. Alright, let's see if we can get this tensioner off of here. Not exactly sure which way we're going to have to spin this thing, but got our socket on here. Looks like we might need our crow's foot, so let me get our crow's foot. Alright. Take our crow's foot. See if we can get it on top of that pulley right down there. If I can't, then I'm going to have to take the tire off and go after it from underneath the car. Which is what I don't want to do, but what it looks like I'm going to have to do if we're to have any type of luck getting this off of here. Nope, we're gonna have to take the tire off, looks like. Have to go in from the side. Alright, well, I'll get the tire off and I'll show you what we're looking at. Alright, let's see what we got under here. We got a missing cover. We got a really big, ugly looking pulley system right there. Looks like Service Pros had their hand on it. There's your catalytic converter right there with your O2 sticking out of it. Okay. Let's look over here. There's our tensioner sitting right up in there. I'll show you where that's at. There's our tensioner sitting right up in there. Some of those tensioners, you can't use the bolt to break them loose. There's a socket hole. You gotta put a ratchet in and then you just twist it back. So this one looks like it's the kind that we need to use our puller on. Looks like it's 15 mil, so I'll go ahead and get a wrench on that and I'll pry that back. We'll pull it off the pulley here and then we'll put the tire back on it. And it looks like the rotors are not even the right rotors for this vehicle. Not my problem. We're not here to do brakes, we're here to do this stupid power steering pump. So we'll go ahead and we'll get that belt off. Then we'll put the tire back on so we can get it back on the ground so we can get in the back there and get that pump loose. So I'll get that done and I'll be right back. Alright, so I put the tire back on, put it back on the ground. Surprisingly, that bolt had a 13 millimeter instead of a 15. So what we have here is a tool I had to buy for that transport that I was working on last week to get the heater hose off. So we're going to use it here. We're going to try to get this power steering hose off so we can get to the line. I've already sprayed the line down with some lubricating pine sol. So we got that going for us. Let's see if we can get this clamp to come loose for us. I don't want to spend all day working on this van. We're going to do it the good old-fashioned way with a pair of long-handled needle nose. See that? And then you yank this sucker back like this. Put it right there like that, and then we can kind of try to get it broke free. I think this is where a pair of vice grips come in handy. Or we got a couple different options here. We're going to try first off using a 90-degree pick, because that's usually my preferred method of getting hoses unstuck. You can get back in here with a 90-degree pick, break the seal on the hose. It usually comes right off. If you can't get in here with a pick, then you have to try it with a screwdriver. If you can't get in there with a screwdriver, which this is not going to happen, I'm going to have to get a pair of pliers. I've already siphoned out the fluid out of here. I did see some shiny bits. So we'll be looking for that in this. In case you're wondering what I'm doing, I'm just gauging my pliers on the hose. I don't want to clamp the hose, I just want to get a grip on it to where I can twist it. Watch this T, this coolant T right here. I'm not sure on the newer ones, but on the older cars, like the ones that I usually work on, them T's break off. And that thing looks like it wants to stay on there until I get it out. So it's gonna make it real difficult. We're gonna have to mess with that when we get it off the vehicle. So, all right, so it looks like we're gonna need, looks like a 15 or a 16 millimeter line wrench. So let me go grab one of those. I can only find my 16 and 18, so we'll see if it's one of these. You got a line right here we got to get broke loose. It'd be easier to do if this hose came off. Let's see if it's a 16. It is not a 16. And let's see if it's an 18. Feels like it could be an 18, but we gotta figure out how to get in there to get that off of there. I'm pretty sure you're not going to be taking that pump off with the lines attached and then try to get the lines off. That would be absolutely ridiculous. And let me see if I can get this line to come off. You gotta get this hose off. We can pick this hose up, get it up over the AC line. Now we're gonna get some turning room. I don't know how in the world they decided to make that a good idea there, but I'm gonna have to go near the flex head. I'll be back in a minute. Alright guys, I'm going to warn you. We had a little bit of carnage here. Look at the carnage. Yeah, okay, so let me explain. Because that line right there, you have to get it loose. There's no room. There's a cabin air filter in this vehicle. So you got to take the air duct out. Well, you got to take the cowl top off, which means the wiper blades have to come off. Cowl bottom right there, you just have to pick it up and move it. I unhooked the wiper washers from here, and then I unhooked it from there and over there on the cowl top. Now we're going to move our hose back to where it was and try to get that broke loose without breaking fingers. While we're back here, we got a bolt here we got to take out, and I think that's it. Oh, there's a bracket hole down right here. So there's 4 bolts on the back we got to take out. Good thing is we don't have to change out the pulley because the new one comes with a pulley. Yeah, this thing feels a little bit worn. I think he's got other problems, but we'll change the pump on it and call it good. So I'm going to break that bolt loose, or that off of there, and then I'll bring you back. We can go ahead and get the pump off the van. All right, we got all of our bolts out. We got our line off. It looks like it's been replaced once before. We got a couple bolts back here we got to get out. I think only 3 of these hold the pump in, but there's one that you got to take out in order to get the line back far enough to get the pump off the van. There's one bolt. Sure that all the bolts look the same, see? If you have one shorter than the other, make note of where it came from. So far, all these bolts are the same size, and they weren't in very tight, so that's a good sign. They're small head bolts, but they only torque like the minimum torque. Alright, so now we should be able to pick up and off if everything's been taken out. Move our hose over here out of the way. And off comes our pump. Pile of garbage that it is. Oh, it is original. So let me show you. Let's get it over here to the bucket so I can dump this thing in. All right, guys. So let's go ahead and rotate our pump here. Make sure we get all of our fluid out. Yeah, I can feel it. It's bad. Make sure you get all your fluid out. The people at the parts store they greatly appreciate it when you can give them a pump that's not leaking everywhere. And you'll know if it's pumping the way you turn the pulley, because it won't pump the other way. Alright. So let me show you, since we got it emptied out now, what makes this pump bad. You see that pump moving right there. You can see that pulley moving back side to side like that. They're not supposed to do that. They're supposed to be solid. That and the way this thing was kind of squirting a little bit, unlike, it's supposed to be a constant flow of fluid, but there was no constant flow of fluid here. So now we're going to take this over, get a new one. We'll be right back. We can put this back together. All right, we got our pump. There's a core charge on it, so I don't have a box to give you a part number from it, but we're going to get this thing set up where we can get our vehicle back together. The way we're going to do this is we're going to mount this first on the car, and then we'll worry about taking our caps off. Let me grab some bolts. They're all the same size bolts, so you don't have to worry about mixing them up. I just don't like having a cowl right here for me to put my bolts on. That's the only dislike I have so far about this job. So set your pump back down. You might notice that it's got guides here. Those are alignment guides there. They go inside these holes here in your bracket. Keeps the pump from falling off when you go to put it together. This is a pretty poorly remanned pump. I'm saying that because of the amount of paint that's on it. Now, 3 of these bolts, actually this is a 4-bolt system. Alright, so the 4th bolt, this back corner bolt, got your hose on it. We can go ahead and get these 3 bolts installed though. Thread them down by hand. If you have any issues with the bolts lining up, that's what those guides are supposed to be for. We'll get 3 of the bolts put in, and then we'll work on the 4th bolt. Yeah, this pump's nice and solid. It's not gonna... Oh, back one dropped in okay. Doesn't want to get started though. Set our other bolt over here on our magnet. See if we can get these bolts started here real quick. Let's see if we can tighten these bolts down. That one's good enough. We gotta get this front one. There's that one. Let's get our hose mounted up back there. We got a bracket for our hose right here. We got to get that down on top of that right here. And you might see some fluid leaking out of your pump back here. That's totally normal. We're going to actually pull the hose off the bracket here real quick so we can get the bracket bolted down. I need this hose back away so I can get the Make sure you got a gigantic drain pan underneath your van too. That way it catches whatever fluid makes it down there. That's what I did with this one. Now this thing is a keyed bracket, so it sits on the sides of the pump. And then just kind of pull that back like that. Pull it like that. The pump is on. All right. Make sure our tools don't end up everywhere. All right, the reason I took the bracket off the line, I need the line back over here. We need to get these fittings ready to go on. There's a plastic washer. It's kind of like a, well, I'll show it to you in just a minute. We gotta get the old washer off the line. I can usually get that done with a pick. Now there's a process. You're supposed to bleed the system. We'll bleed the system in a minute when we get it back together. You got to flush the system. Well, this one will be easy to do because I'm going to probably take this reservoir off here and I'm going to finish dumping it. That's going to be the majority of your fluid. I'm not going to hook it back up until I get all the fluid out. Your line for that's right here underneath. We'll get the pump back on, and then we'll, before we hook the line, this line up to the top here, we'll go through and we'll run the air hose through the system, and we'll get all the bad fluid out of here. That's how I do it. I run an air line through it. Now, there's some people that say you shouldn't do that. Well, you know what? It doesn't make much difference whether you do it that way or not, because and this is the part that's important. It's going to have air in it anyway, because you compromised the seal on this line I'm working on. This is your pressure line. Make sure that you got your seal cleared. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the pump reservoir off. And I'm going to take it and dump it into my bucket. And then I'm going to run an air line from down here. It's going to go through the rack. It's going to come out up here. Well, up here, I'm going to have a way for it to get to the bottom of the vehicle. We're going to get all the fluid out of it. Then, as we fill it up, it'll circulate, it'll bubble out. Process, you know, the way we do things. But we need to get our caps off now, so let's go ahead and get this top cap off. We're going to get this cap off of here. Sometimes these caps are hard to get off. This one's not too terrible. Just, if you're doing it with a pick, make sure that you don't stab yourself in the hand. I've done that a few times. This one down here is really easy to get if you got a flathead screwdriver, or your 90-degree pick comes in handy for this part too. Find the slot, twist it like that, comes right off. Make sure that if yours is painted like this one is, make sure you get all the paint off the outside of the port so that you don't get that in your pump. You don't want to get any of that paint in your pump. All right, so we need to get our O-ring on, and then we can, we'll be ready for our line to go on. So I'm going to go ahead and get this cleared out, and I will be right back, and then we'll start finishing this job up. All right, we got our reservoir cleaned out. That screen's about maybe 50% cleaner than it was. I can't get it completely clean without taking the top off of it. As far as I know, those reservoirs don't come apart. And I'm not about to find out the hard way that that is actually true. So I took the line off the bottom of the reservoir. I took my little coffee can that I made specifically for this job. I sat it on the other side of this line right here, and I just pushed the air, so it slowly pushed the fluid out of that line over there. And after that was done, we got all the fluid out. So now there's no fluid in the rack until after we add fluid here. It's going to go down that hose back into the rack. So it's going to whine a little bit when we first start it, but then again, that's normal for Ford. Fords like to whine. So now I need to find my 90-degree pick that I had, so I can open up this package and we can get this O-ring installed. So I just went in the shop and got a different pick, or in the shed got another pick. Yeah, Fords like to use this plastic O-ring. You're not supposed to put anything on the threads. You can't put Teflon tape. You can't put that pipe dope. You can't put nothing like that on this line. It has to be just this O-ring. This O-ring goes on just like this. Part of the reason I need that pick is so I can get this O-ring on. I'm going to find my pick. This O-ring's a bear to get on without it. It's completely doable, because I've done it before. I don't like doing it. And you got to be careful when doing this job with this O-ring, because if you break this O-ring, you're screwed. Your pump will leak. I might have to go grab my, like I said, I probably won't see that pick again until cleanup time. Let me go grab another pick. That's why I have multiples. So this is how you do this with the pick. Grab your line, get it started. Take your pick, grab it from the side, like this. It's a little hard to do this like this, but as soon as you get it up on the threads of the pipe, you can go ahead and just rock it down the threads. But you got to get it on the threads first. Okay, you just rock it around, and you just take it and you just roll it around until you get it down to the end of the line. And there it is. And it's not broke, so we're in good shape. Now we can go ahead and get our pressure line put on. Line this thing up the best you can. It'd be a good idea if you could make sure that the fitting moves freely, because it is a little bit of a challenge to get this on if your fitting's not right. This one's got a little bit of rust in it, so we got to kind of just gently get it going like that, and then make sure that it's on straight. This one's not on straight, or maybe it is. Well, it seems to be going on okay. These are hard to cross thread, so being that the threads are what they are, this thing should spin on by hand. And then you want to take, when it gets down to the end, and just tighten it up. And then after we get this tightened up, we'll go ahead and actually we could do that right now. Just put that in there like that. That holds that clamp there. Grab our flare end wrench, and we can go ahead and just cinch this down. Yeah, if you take your reservoir and you look inside your reservoir and there's a lot of crap in the bottom of it, it's probably better that you You can try to clean it out, but what I would recommend is instead of cleaning it out, just get a replacement. I think Ford still makes them. Alright, I think we're smashed. I'll just push it in one more time, make sure that we're go here. Alright, we're not going to leak. I'm going to tell you what, if you have to try to tighten that up after you get the cowl back on, it's going to be a real challenge. So you want to make sure that's nice and tight before you get that far. If it makes you feel better, and I think I'm going to do this, get our hose back on here. You want it to stop right there. I think what I'm going to do, since there's nothing in the way, I'll put the belt and everything back on, and I'll start the car up and verify that it's not going to leak, and then I can go ahead and put the cowl and the HVAC and everything back together on it. That way, if it does leak, we can get to it, we can get it stopped. So, alright, so we got our return line, pressure lines on. We got to make sure that neither one of these leak. That one's going to be pretty good. We need to go ahead and get our belt reinstalled. So that means I got to jack the car back up, take the tire back off. Then we'll get our belt back on. And then we'll start it up for just a minute to make sure that we don't have any leaks from the pump. Then we'll shut it off. We'll put the cowl back on, put the air duct back on for the very dirty cabin air filter. We'll get that all done, get the wipers back on it, and ship it. So let me see, how did he have this belt on? Let's see, he did not have it on that pulley. He bypassed that one altogether. Let's see, it goes on here. He had it down around the idler. Actually, he did not. He had it wrapped around like this. Alright, so up here is ready to go. I just got to get down there and get the bottom done. So I'll get the belt back on, and then we'll be right back and finish this job up. Alright, we got our belt back on. It's going to make some noise because it's got power steering fluid on the belts. But we're going to make sure. I'm going to get some brake clean out here. We're going to get some brake clean. Now, spec calls for this, okay? So you'll fill this up. Wait for that to drain down, and then we'll add some more to it. You got a min-max line right over here on the side. Oh, before we start this, we need to put that bypass hose on, or we're going to have coolant squirting everywhere. We got to get this bypass hose hooked back up. That thing goes down in between this bunch of crap here. Yep, it goes under here. And this goes back on there like that. We can go ahead and get our pliers on it. We'll push that clamp back down. We got to do this or that thing will start squirting antifreeze everywhere, and we don't want that. Lock that back down on there. Close our cap back up. Make sure all of your tools are cleared before you start this piece of garbage up. Alright, let's go ahead and start it. You can put the cap on the reservoir if you want to. Why do you want to? This is why you can if you want to. Like I said, it's going to whine a little bit. What we're looking for is any kind of leaking coming from down there. And I think I got it cleaned off the best I can with our parts cleaner here. Yeah, I think we got it cleaned off the best we can. Now, if you hear belt squeal, that's because we didn't get all the power steering fluid off. But let's go ahead and start it up and see what kind of noises it makes. Alright, we need to add some more fluid to it. Rotate our wheels so we don't burn up our pump. Add some more fluid to it. No leak. That's a good sign. It's pumping. We're at the min line, so we need to keep going. You can barely see it, but it's at the min line. You can see the fluid flowing around in there. There, now we're at the max line. Now we got to rotate the wheel back and forth. It's going to get noisy. It's going to get really tight, but you want to keep doing it till it loosens up and the noise goes away. It's called bleeding the system. That's interesting. Seems to be making our belt bark. It's not supposed to do that. Now we're a little bit above our max line, so we need to pull some down. We got to have some air for that thing to be able to circulate. So we'll pull a little bit out of here. There we go. Not much. Give that thing later, you won't be able to bleed it properly. It looks alright so far. We'll see if we can do some more turning with it, and then we're going to move on to putting the cowl and stuff back on. You got the best view in the house. You guys tell me what you see. What I can hear is that belt chirping because it's the wrong belt. This van was designed for a belt for air conditioning. And the only way he's going to get that chirping to go away is to put a proper belt on here and quit being cheap and put the AC compressor back on it. So I'm going to give it back to him. It's going to be chirping, but I'm just going to tell him the reason it's chirping is because this belt is the wrong belt. This van was designed for air conditioning and not non-air conditioning. So, but we're not making noises, we're not chirping. Our pump is functioning. It's a little choppy, but again, that's because this is the wrong belt. It's not turning that pulley fast enough or properly to allow the fluid to flow through that rack, which I do believe the rack is bad on this van as well, but the customer is going to do what he wants. As far as I'm concerned, because we got the smoking off the belts finally, it is safe to drive. Now we'll put the cowl and stuff back on it. Pretty easy process. I'm not going to waste your time with it, and I'm going to go ahead and call this one done. And I'll get all this wrapped up here and then take it out and drive it and see what it does. So I hope you found this helpful, and if you do, make sure to like and subscribe and all that good stuff. We'll see you on the next one, guys.